You are listening to Season 4, Episode 4 of the Fly the W podcast. We call this one the Fly the W Cubs Con Extravaganza 2025. Don't forget to listen, download, review. Most importantly, subscribe to the podcast and follow us on all the socials. Fly the W670 on Twitter and Facebook, and Fly the W on Facebook. Or you can email us at flythew670@gmail.com. I'm sure I'm going to have plenty of questions, but my first guest, ladies and gentlemen, for the official New Year's for all Cubs fans is the Senior VP of Marketing, Jen Martindale. Jen, I appreciate you taking time out. I know how hard you are working this time of year.
Oh, I appreciate you having me. This is exciting. This is the most fun week of the winter for us. So I appreciate you talking about it.
Now, Jen, tell our listeners, I know CubsCon 2024 was a lot of fun. You guys, I saw you running around. You had to do a lot of pivoting. There was a snowstorm and God only knows. Once you got to rest after that, when do you start planning the next year's CubCon?
We start like 2 weeks after it ends. So we let everyone, take a breath and start making sure we have our ducks in a row to head to Mesa. And then we jump right back into talking about the next Cubs convention. So it's really like an 11-month out of the year job for us. But it's time well spent. Like I said, it's the most fun week of the year. We feel it's like the unofficial turning of the page from last season to the upcoming season. It gets the fans excited and ready for spring training.
Now, on December 19th, Sammy Sosa stuns Cubs Nation. He issues an apology for past transgressions, and almost immediately, the president, Tom Ricketts, says, "Hey, welcome back, Sammy." How quick were you on the phone with Sammy Sosa after Tom Ricketts gave his blessings?
We acted very quickly with Tom's permission to extend the invitation to Sammy to join us at Cubs Convention. And we were delighted that he accepted Tom's invitation. And we couldn't be more happy for the fans that they're going to get the chance to have him back in Chicago and at Cubs Convention for the first time since 2003.
So for me, I'm kind of like sitting back there thinking, and just from the vibe that I'm getting, I feel like this is going to be the biggest CubCon since 2017 after the Cubs won the World Series. Did you see a Sosa effect on the ticket sales for CubsCon?
We did. And we also saw a ton of conversation happening online, obviously. So we are always listening to see what the fans are talking about. And it was pretty explosive in the days after Sammy's announcement in terms of fans getting excited for him to come back to Chicago and make an appearance at CubsCon.
So for a lot of people that, this may be their first CubsCon, and there's always newcomers that are coming. And with Sammy, a lot of people are coming back that haven't been in a while. It used to be a program. You would get a program when you would go into Cubs Convention. And then last year you guys started the app, and it is back. I have been literally just refreshing probably for over a week now, every single day. And it really is, to me, I loved the program, but it ends up getting like ripped up. You lose it. You're trying to figure things out. This makes things a lot more easy. What were some of the feedback you got from the app, from the fans, and were any changes made?
Yeah. So, we're always nervous when we make a change because Cubs fans in particular, they have the way that they like things done, and we understand that. So when we made the choice to move away from paper programs to the app, we were a little nervous and expected, some blowback for it. And we were shocked by how overwhelmingly positive the feedback was last year, and people telling us it was so much easier to keep track of things, to build out their own personal schedule in the app so they know where they want to be and when they want to be there. They could see how many other people had signed up for the same things. So if something was really popular, they knew they wanted to get there early to get a good seat. So yeah, it's been really positive. And we are continuing to add information to the app every day. And so I love that you've already downloaded it and using it and are using it. It's not done yet in that, again, we'll just be continuing to add things to it up until the doors open. And you're right, no snowstorm this year from what we can tell. And so we don't anticipate any issues with players or alumni traveling in this year.
Well, when we talk our listeners through the weekend, registration, of course, begins on Friday. And if you're new to CubsCon or you're new to the Sheraton, registration starts at 12 p.m. and goes all night pretty much. And that's at level 1 on the Riverwalk level. So all the way to the bottom is where you get into line to register. And usually we get a drawstring bag and some goodies. I assume that there's going to be another drawstring bag and goodies this year as well.
There will be a drawstring bag. Yeah, absolutely. We know what people like to keep when we give it to you all, mostly so you have somewhere to store your stuff as you collect it throughout the weekend. So we found that it's really functional for our fans. And, realizing how many people come in on Friday, we're trying to experiment with adding more for folks to do on Friday. So this year, we're actually going to be doing more autograph sessions on Friday. So be on the lookout because there's going to be some really fun names of people who are going to be making autograph appearances on Friday.
Ooh, I love it. I love it. And the other thing too, just a reminder for season ticket holders, there's a specific line. So just make sure you're in the season ticket holder line when you're at registration. We had Pat Manahar on our show not too long ago. 2:15 Cubs Authentics opens up their store around noon, and 2:15 is the live auction. That is always a lot of fun for people to get game used items. And Jen, for CubsCon junkies, the Cubs player meet and greets is one of their favorite parts of the weekend. They start lining up Thursday and spending the night. I've seen crazy setups there, but tell our listeners what the meet and greet is all about, where the money goes to, and what they get for their dollars.
Yeah. I'm so glad you brought that up because if you do buy a meet and greet, all of that money goes to Cubs Charities, which many of you know, but if you don't, it's really all about leveling the playing field for kids in all 77 neighborhoods of Chicago and using sports programming to develop, healthy, strong human beings. So all of the money from the meet and greets goes to a really good cause. We'll be doing them throughout the day on Saturday and really throughout the weekend. And you're right about the line. I think last year we had one of the players actually deliver pizza to the folks who were waiting in line in the middle of the night because we felt so honored, but also bad that they were sitting out there all night waiting to get those. So maybe we'll have a surprise pizza delivery man again this year.
So if you get the meet and greet, so you pay the money for the charity and then you get, is it 2 autographs and a picture, correct?
Yep.
And then a baseball, I think, as well this year.
Yeah,
other things
it's a really nice package. I mean, we realize people are spending their hard-earned money on it, and we want to make sure that they feel like it's really valuable. So it's a really nice package that they put together.
And not only that, the grab bags are popular. And for people that don't know, the grab bags are full of different, usually stadium giveaways from the last season, correct?
Yeah, so it's kind of a mystery, right? You're going to donate a little money to charity and you're going to get a surprise bag that'll have some of our promo items from the past year in it. So if you didn't get that thing you really wanted last year and you weren't able to trade with another Cubs fan, this might be your last opportunity to get it.
And there's also the mystery baseball, which usually is by some really great player that you can also get. You have no idea, but it's definitely always worth it. Everyone I always see that gets one really is always really happy about it.
Yeah, it's really fun. And, you mentioned Pat Manahar earlier, who leads up our brand heritage here in the marketing group. And he's doing really awesome programming at convention again this year with our archive rooms and in partnership with our team historian, Ed Hardig. They're going to be running back their master classes this year and have a lot of fun topics where fans can spend, 45 minutes with them and go really deep into an area of Cubs history that they're interested in.
That sounds great. Now the meet and greet and grab bags and all that stuff and the mystery baseballs, those are all on the lobby level as well. So people know. And you said there's going to be some new autograph sessions. So that's going to be exciting. And they're mystery ones, which I like, a little intrigue. The blue carpet event is something you guys started a few years ago. Tell our friends a little bit about the blue carpet event.
Yeah, so the blue carpet is our way for us and our fans to welcome the players to Cubs convention and create more of a moment for them and for us. And so when the players arrive, they will actually walk the blue carpet. They will talk to the press, and we will have kind of a stanchioned off area where the fans can stand pretty close to the players and help greet them when they arrive at the Sheraton before we get going with opening ceremony. So it's kind of just a nice kind of way to start the evening and for the fans to see the players up close and personal before we kick into the festivities.
Now, opening ceremonies begins at 6 p.m. The MC is our guy, Cole Wright. And Jen, I've talked to Cole. He is pumped. He must have been practicing for about an hour how to say Sammy Sosa's name. I mean, I don't know how he's going to do it, but he's going to do it with energy.
I'm sure he'll have fun with it. Yeah, it's going to be great.
And then you have opening ceremonies, which is fun. But what you guys have done the last 2 years is that you announce the class, the Hall of Fame class, and it'll be for 2025. So fans do not want to miss that at all.
You don't want to miss this one. It's going to be really fun. And you'll have to be there in the ballroom to see who's getting in this year, but I guarantee it's going to be a great time.
Now, after opening ceremonies, he's off the mound. Ryan Dempster with his late night talk show, a lot of current and former players. It's always a hoot. In 2023, you guys started Harry Karaoke. So I know I'll have my singing voice, Jen. Are you going to come down for a song or two?
We count on you to get it going. So you can't let us down.
Oh, I'll be there. I'm ready. Now on Saturday, fans, and what I always try to tell, especially people that are new, don't try to do it all because it can get overwhelming, right? Try to find just a couple different things and sample what you really like. You can participate in experiences or the panels. And so like for fans looking for autographs, they'll be where the registration at the bottom level, and there's a lot of great autographs that you can get. Are there going to be any vouchers for the big names, or is there no vouchers this year?
Well, we're always trying new things to be as equitable as possible for our fans and give everyone the best chance of getting what they want. I think we learned a lot last year. And so this year, while there won't be vouchers, I think we're going to continue to make sure that fans feel like they know where to be, when to be there, and they aren't standing in line unnecessarily, for something that they shouldn't be or don't need to be. And so we're working really hard on directing people to the right places and being super clear about if you are in a certain line and a player has been signing for 58 minutes already and you're still 30 back, we want to be able to let you know reasonably, like, we're not going to be able to promise you that this player is still going to sign, but we're going to do our best to move everybody through as quickly as we can. We know that it's hard for our fans to stand there and wait for a long time. And we appreciate them for doing it. And our players do sign for as long as they can. But as you know, like, the hand cramps up after a while. They just can't go on forever. I wish they could.
And another perk, if you're a season ticket holder, is there's going to be separate autograph sessions on the second floor in Archive Alley. So if if you're a season ticket holder, that's one of the advantages. You get to be in there. Now,
right.
You mentioned the master class is run by Cubs historian Ed Hardig. These are on the second floor in Archive Alley. And it's first come, first serve, only the first 30 people. And I went to a couple of them last year. I got to see Lucella's presentation on the Sandberg statue, and it's really, really cool. And so if you kind of need a break in like a smaller setting, he's going to have all sorts of, Ed is like a human computer. It's a super computer. He's unbelievable, but they're going to have stuff on the Hall of Fame, on Cubs uniforms over the years, the building of Wrigley Field. And then you're doing something new this year called Cubs Chats. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So again, we listen to the fans every year when we do our survey, and people are always saying, we want more programming. We want more panels, more information. And so that's another way to give people an alternative to the main ballroom. If they want to be in a more intimate setting, we're going to have a series of smaller talks in the Ohio room, I believe. And that will range from talking to some of the coaches on Craig Counsell's staff, to meeting with women in the front office, to talking to some of our Latino players. So we'll have other smaller opportunities if you don't feel like sitting in the big room all day.
I'm excited. My guy Miguel Esparza is going to be leading the one with the Hispanic players. It's going to be really great. So I'm glad that they have an opportunity to kind of be in a smaller setting and being able to communicate, because they're really a lot of interesting players.
Yeah. And on Sunday, I just want to make a pitch on Sunday. Something new we started last year was a coffee talk about African Americans in baseball. And we're going to be running that back again this Sunday as well. And we will, like last year, be providing coffee and donuts to fans who come, because Saturday's a long day. And we know some of y'all were up really late Saturday night. And so we figured a gesture would be, come down, have a cup of coffee on us, and hear some wonderful conversations about the great legacy of African Americans in baseball.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. And when you talk about all of those conversations, it starts in the morning with Jen Carter at 9, Craig Counsell at 10. But I think the biggest session, Jen, when I look at it, it's got to be the Compound Live with Ian Happ. He's got some kind of good guess, right?
I think he's going to have a guest that everyone's very excited to hear from.
Yeah, we looked at the schedule and two right fielders, one former, one current, Sammy Sosa and Kyle Tucker. So I think that's going to be the big one. 12:15 are the pitchers: Justin Steele, Jamison Tyone, Porter Hodge, and newcomer Matt Boyd. 1:15, the fan favorite, kids only press conference: Ben Brown, Michael Bush, PCA, Luke Little. What a crew you got up there with PCA and Luke Little and Ben Brown. But just hearing the kids, I mean, their questions just always just elicit a lot of laughter.
It's the highlight for me in a lot of ways, because I feel like the kids always ask the most honest and, just sweet questions, and it's a really nice thing for the players. And I think we picked the perfect players for the panel this year. I have a feeling PCA is gonna crush that one.
Oh, me too. And you got the hitters at 2:30, Amaya Horner, Kyle Tucker, and Gage Workman. And then the last session of the night is the return of the road to Wrigley, which used to be was it down on the farm on Sunday? It used to be. And then they had a big one. The 2023 was the big one. It was the last session. And again, it's back with Moises Ballesteros, Matt Shaw, Cade Horton, James Triantos. And so that's a lot of fun, especially if you enjoy the Road to Wrigley show, which I do. They always do such a good job. Elise Menaker and Lance Prostowski and Jim Callis. So it's really good. And once again, there is a chance to talk to Cubs owner Tom Ricketts. Can you tell our listeners what that entails?
Yeah, so something we did for the first time last year, and we got a lot of great feedback about, was people wanting the opportunity to talk to Tom. And while we had typically used to do that up on stage in the main ballroom, at the end of the day, he can only answer so many questions during that Q&A. And so we rethought it, and we were like, why don't we just let Tom hang out with the fans for 2 hours and talk to them in a more intimate way, and they can just walk right up to him and talk to him about whatever's on their minds. So that's what you have the opportunity to do. Tom will be hosting anyone who wants to come to Shula's Steakhouse that evening for 2 hours. You can ask him anything you want, talk to him, get your photo if you're so inclined, and we'll have some beers being passed around on us so that everyone can have a beverage after a long day of panels.
Beers, coffee, and donuts. I mean, you're baseball. You're speaking my language. And of course, no Saturday night is complete without the incomparable Wayne Messmer and Cubs bingo. Get there early, get your seat. And Jen, have you had a chance to ever just sit back, relax, and play a game of Cubs bingo?
That's my goal this year. So the past couple of years, I've been usually running around trying to get more bingo supplies to tables, because I feel like no matter how much we plan ahead, we somehow never have enough. But this year I'm going to commit to trying to actually sit down and play a game. It is truly one of the most fun traditions of the weekend. Wayne does such an excellent job. So much cool stuff is given away that night. And I've tried to explain it to people who've never been to Cubs convention, and it really is something you have to experience for yourself. So if you're a fan who hasn't been to Cubs Con in several years, don't worry. We haven't touched bingo. It's still perfect as it is.
Jen, I'm going to save a spot for you in case you want to join some crazy Cub fans. I will save a seat for you. Harry Karaoke closes out the night. You mentioned honoring MLK, which is 9 a.m., coffee and donuts, which is going to be absolutely awesome. And then the thing that you guys started a few years ago that a lot of people like are the youth baseball clinics. There's a session at 9:10 and a session at 10:15. But just to be clear to all our listeners, this is something you had to pre-register for, correct?
It is. It's so popular. And obviously, since we're inside, we can only accommodate a certain amount of people. So you did have to pre-register the child in your life before arriving at CubsCon. But we look forward to seeing a couple hundred kids on Sunday.
Right. And again, if you didn't know that, that's no big deal. You do it next year.
One more thing I want to mention, Crawly, before I go, is I'd really encourage anyone who's coming to CubsCon this weekend to please fill out the survey you're going to get about Cubs Convention the following week. So we will send you an email if you bought CubsCon passes, and it will say, please tell us what you thought of the event. It'll give you a link to a really short survey. But those results, we really do look at them, and we use them every year to try to make this event as good as we can. So please fill out the survey after CubsCon.
Jen, I appreciate you jumping on, giving us a few minutes of your time. And I know how much you guys work. So I'm hoping you get to really enjoy the fruits of your labors, and fans are excited, as we always are, for this time of year.
I can't wait for it. And I look forward to seeing you this weekend and, 6,000 other avid Cubs fans. It's going to be a great time.
This is the Fly the W670 The Score podcast, and it is season 4. It's episode number 4, and the CubsCon extravaganza 2025 is upon us, as you know. Don't forget to leave us one of those 5-star reviews. Well, Crawly, we didn't get everything we wanted. We haven't got a whole lot that we wanted, to be honest. But the Cubs were involved on the Sasaki sweepstakes, but apparently they've come up a little bit short.
Yep, Cub fans were hoping, praying that Japanese phenom pitcher Roki Sasaki would be choosing the North Side as his new home. But alas, it wasn't meant to be. Dustin, MLB divides its international free agents into 2 categories: professionals, which the league defines as players who are at least 25 years old and have played professional in a foreign league for a minimum of 6 seasons, and amateurs defined as any player 16 or over who doesn't yet qualify as a professional. So Roki is 23 years old. He throws triple digits, and he's not going to cost a lot of money, right? So Yamamoto last season, he already played 6 years in the NPB, and so he signed a $325 million deal. You're going to essentially get someone similar for at the most $10 million. So, I mean, it's just one of those things.
It was a massive bargain, and congratulations, I guess. Listen, at this point, as long as it's not the Dodgers, I obviously wanted it to be the Cubs. We all listening wanted it to be the Cubs, as long as it's not the Dodgers.
Right. Monday, the news just started leaking out slowly, and I'm watching. All of a sudden, said, "Hey, the Giants were told that they're out on Sasaki," and then I think it was the Yankees, and then the Mets, and now all of a sudden, I'm glued to my phone. Then the Rangers, and that just left the final four: Dodgers, Padres, Blue Jays, and Cubs. And unfortunately, it was Sahadev Sharma at 4:53 who let us all know that it just wasn't going to be with the Cubs. I think he would have liked playing here.
Well, maybe he won't like playing in San Diego, and maybe when he gets his second contract, it'll be here.
Yeah, maybe. To me, it was always either going to be the Dodgers or Padres. But you know what? I'd like to see him go to the Blue Jays, like you said. Anything but the Dodgers. I'd like, the Padres would be cool. I like the Padres and the way they've been doing things, and I like you, Darvish, and so I'd be happy, just like you said, just not the Dodgers. Let's start to make it a little bit fun. This can't be like the most mega super team ever.
No, absolutely not. Okay, so no Sasaki, but we got Arias.
Yep, we got Colin Rea. The Cubs made it official. Colin Rea is back. We talked about it on the last episode. He signed a $5 million deal 1 year with an option for 2026. So the contract is roughly worth about $6 million guaranteed. And so Rea pitched for the Cubs in 2020 and for Craig Counsell and the Brewers the last few years. The question, though, Dustin, last time we left was who was going to be removed from the 40-man roster to make room for Rea.
Right, make room for him, right.
And the answer was kind of shocking to me. It was Michael Arias, who is the Cubs' 18th ranked prospect. And so he was a position player who was converted to pitcher, and he shot up the minor league system. I got to see him when I went to go visit Myrtle Beach. I threw out the first pitch and sang the stretch down at the Dirty Myrtle, and it was a lot of fun. But I saw this kid, and him and Moises Ballesteros. I was like, wow, these guys are special. This kid threw gas. Now, the one thing, though, in that first season he did, he went through Myrtle Beach, and then he went to South Bend. And then last season he went to Tennessee and then got called up to Iowa. And control issues have kind of always been a part of his game. He's kind of struggled with control, but I was surprised to see that he was the one on the, that was put on that was DFA'd to make room. And today, Dustin, we find out that the Yankees traded him for cash consideration. So he made it through the waiver process. And so they traded him and they got some cash for Michael Arias. I wish him nothing the best. He was a great kid. I got a chance to talk to him down in Myrtle. And, it's hard sometimes when you get to know these kids a little bit and then all of a sudden they're going somewhere else. Speaking of going somewhere else, Dustin, I thought about you. And I'll tell you why. We got some news that I know that you were probably crying about a little bit upset. Yeah, the Cubs had to make room for reliever Matt Festa, and so Miles made it through waivers. So the Cubs traded him to Seattle for cash considerations.
We have any idea how much cash considerations do you get on that?
I am not sure on that. I just know he is on the Mariners 40-man roster. So now, Dustin, you have an NL team and an AL team you can root for. I was going to get you a Mariners Mastroboni jersey, but I don't know. We wish Miles the best.
I don't wish anything bad on him. I saw enough. Saw enough of Miles Mastroboni. Thank you very much.
All righty. So we talked about Colin Rea, we talked about Matt Festa, and you had a chance to have Tommy Hotovy on the Mully and Haw show this morning. Always a good listen, right?
Yeah, great guy. Great that Tommy's back. He's headed to Chicago for a couple days to take part in a couple of the Cubs festivities with Cubs Con, and had some interesting things to say, and talked about both starting pitching and bullpen stuff.
Yeah, and Roki Sasaki, and this is how Tommy discussed losing out on Sasaki.
It's disappointing disappointing in the fact that, we were one of the teams that got to present. I was part of that, part of the process. We felt really good about just the overall process we went through, the presentation, the evaluation, the whole thing, and it didn't work out. And for one reason or another, he chose the three teams he did. And I think, is it disappointing you don't get a guy of that caliber? Absolutely. But I think what you're able to take away as a group and as an organization, all the people that came together to work on a project like that, it's exciting because we know we can do really good things. And yes, we're not a finalist for Roki, but when you can showcase what you can do as an organization to an agency or to an industry in a different light that, you don't do in normal free agency, I think it's always a really good thing. I do think the whole process is a little weird with a guy like Roki because it's just, just the international free agent signing thing is just, there still needs to be, in my opinion, some kinks, worked out. The fact that you have a guy of that caliber that you're going to be able to get for 6 years in your organization, and he gets to decide where he wants to go seems really strange when you have like a Paul Skeens who's a first round draft pick and the Pirates get him. So, it's just a weird process. And I think it's something that, I think MLB over time is going to need to continue to figure out because there's going to be more talent like his that pops up, and we see that kind of every couple of years, some really, really talented people. But, as far as our process, felt really good about it. Now it's, how we continue to find ways to make our team better.
I really liked how Tommy mentioned the process and the idea that there's a lot of Latino players that were really frustrated with this situation. We talked about how the Dodgers said, hey, certain guys, you can go sign with somebody else because we got to save the money for Roki, going back on agreements, handshake agreements, obviously. But, it's to me, obviously Roki or a lot of the Yoshinobu Yamamoto, those are guys that are professionals. You know what I mean? They're not the 16, 17-year-old Dominican kids or from Venezuela or something like that. It's a different process. And it's not, the fact that some team's going to get him so cheap is just ridiculous. It he should really just be a free agent, a regular free agent, not an international free agent. They need
I don't know how they come up with these rules, but they are what they are, and they're here what they hear, and we're unfortunately dealing with what we're dealing with. It's not ideal, but it sounds like the Cubs got an A on their presentation. They just didn't get any bonus points, I guess, right? They didn't get an A+, but they got an A.
Right. That sounds good. Now, two guys, Dustin, that we were really looking forward to seeing on the Cubs last year, Ben Brown and Cade Horton. We did see Ben Brown. We didn't see Cade Horton because, and both of those guys had to deal with injuries. And one of the questions asked to Tommy was about, the role of those two guys. And just a question that we've talked about on the show, is there going to be inning limits? Are those guys going to be coming out of the bullpen as they try to work their way back from those injuries? And here's what Tommy had to say.
They're both doing great right now, which is a really good thing. I think they'll both be here this weekend too. I know I'm pretty sure Ben and Cade are going to both be in town, which will be fun for everybody to get to see them. I think what these signings allow you to do is not rush guys that either didn't finish the season healthy or might be slightly delayed, not meaning that they're like hurt or not, are going to be like missing the first 2 or 3 months of the season, but it affords you the opportunity to not rush and push those guys in early in the season. We see mid-March, late March, and that end of April, early May times are the two biggest times of the year that guys get hurt in baseball, especially on the pitching side. And that's just been that way for a long time. We're doing a lot of research and finding ways to be able to try to negate that on our end. And some of that is just having more bodies and having the volume of pitchers you need to get through that portion of the season. Both of those guys, definitely still believe in as starters. We're always open, as you saw like Ben last year at times, to have guys, young guys especially, come in and pitch some high leverage innings in the bullpen, and we trust them to do that. So it leaves the door wide open, and that signings like Boyd and Ray afford us the opportunity to not only, make sure those guys are ready for the season, but also have some creative ideas on how to utilize.
So when you look at that, it's obviously, you know, when you talk about not having to rush those guys, that's a big deal. And we saw the effect that, like Justin Steele, if you remember, years ago, he came out of the bullpen. He wasn't a starter, you know, when originally when he came up with the Cubs. And so it's a good opportunity. And again, if you only are throwing 1 or 2 innings, you can throw a little bit harder, a little bit nastier stuff, because you don't have to make it through the order 3 times through or try to make it 5, 6 innings. And you can use those arms longer instead of as a starter. So when you talk about Boyd and you talk about Rhea, those are guys that'll give you those starts that you're looking for, right?
Yep, absolutely right. You know, they're going to have some guys that eat some innings. There's no doubt about that. But you know, it sounded pretty positive, right? I mean, I took what he said as a pretty positive sign for some of the young guys that didn't finish out the way that we had hoped, and they had hoped that they would.
All you can ask is being healthy, have them healthy coming into camp, and then just see where it goes from there. And you hope that one of those guys can have a breakthrough year, you know, just someone that you did think about Porter Hodge last year, where the Cubs would have been without Porter Hodge, you know, you just need somebody to kind of break out and do something to really help the team that maybe, you know, can get you, you know, add 3 or 4 wins to the team that you weren't expecting to get. Yep.
Exactly right. No, that's a great point, Crawly. Great point.
Now, obviously, your teammate on the score, Bruce Levine, Odyssey Insider, Marquee. We know Bruce always has some scoops, and this is what he said the other day on Marquee.
Well, short term, yeah. Okay. And I think the Cubs are going to be in on it if it goes to 1 or 3. 1-year deal, maybe a 3-year deal with opt-outs for Bregman would be the way that he and his agent are going to go at this point. Bregman turned down 6 years and $156 million.
That's lucrative.
The Astros. It's not looking good for him right now, but here's the difference in 2024 in his career and something that the general managers are looking at right now. The OPS dropped almost 100 points, and the on-base percentage way low. He didn't walk. He walked almost half as much as he did in the past. So with those things in mind, you know, at age 30, you know, is this guy going the other direction? Well, short term,
So
yeah. Okay. And I think the Cubs are.
Dustin, you know, we're talking with Alex Bregman. So Bruce says that Alex Bregman is into some type of deal that similar to what Cody Bellinger got, right? 3 years with opt-outs, etc. But I don't know. The Cody Bellinger thing kind of got me a little bit nervous, because if it doesn't work out, you're stuck with the tab, right?
Right.
You know, I think that the Cubs, you know, didn't want Bellinger to opt back in. It surprised them when he did. And then, you know, obviously the Yankees picked it up, but that was a little bit of a nerve-wracking situation. And so Alex Bregman, you wonder if Scott Boras overplayed his hand with him again, like he did, you know, with a couple of his clients last year. He was offered $156 million deal from Houston, and he turned it down. And I'm wondering if that was another mistake.
Yeah, it appears to be a mistake. I mean, you always like a guy who's betting on himself. I mean, he's going to come in here if it does happen. Here's the key to this whole thing. I don't necessarily mind the, let's say, $19 million for this coming season. It's what's after that and how is it set up? Is it a player option? Is it a mutual option? There's no way they're going to let it be just the Cubs option with like a $750,000 thanks for the memories, see you later, bye. Right? So, you know, is it going to be another, you know, 18 million in 26 and another 19 million in 27? I don't want to go down that road. I don't want Cody Bellinger 2.0 contract.
Yeah, it's not going to be a Colin Rea there that it's going to be the team, you know, no, that this is going to be exactly like Cody's deal, and it's going to be Scott Boras putting it together. So you know what it's going to be. It's going to be a lot of money with the opt-out. So basically, if he does good, you know, he's going to parlay that into a bigger contract. If he doesn't do good, then you're kind of stuck on the hook for that. So, you know, I don't know, you know, when you think about Bregman's numbers and the fact that it just didn't look good last year, he's 30 years old. I don't know. I think that, you know, the Cubs still might be interested in someone, you know, Ha-Seong Kim or Yoan Moncada. We've talked about.
Yoan Moncada. We talk about that a little bit. That just, the storyline. I just love the storyline of that. That's all. I just love the storyline. So Crawly, there's a picture on social media that's bothering you.
Probably not a big deal, Dustin. I know.
Probably not. Probably not. I know. Listen, I'm the king of making a big deal out of nothing, but you, my friend, are making a big deal out of something here.
So Kyle Tucker took a picture of himself at a training facility working out. Why would that be a big deal, Crawly? Because he was working out with Cam Smith, who the Cubs traded to acquire Tucker. I'm guessing, obviously, the location is somewhere in Texas. And so I'm sure Cam's down there getting used to everything. All I'm saying is if the Cubs do not sign Kyle Tucker to an extension, this picture is going to haunt me. Dustin, in my man cave, in the washroom, I'm not kidding you, I have a place that's called the Wall of Shame. And in that is pictures of negative things in the Cubs history. And obviously everybody knows Brock for Broglio, right? The famous trade where the Cubs traded Lou Brock, future Hall of Famer and key catalyst to Cardinals World Series for a bum arm in Lou Broglio. But there was never a picture of the two next to each other working out. Could you imagine if that existed? I'm just saying if the Cubs extend Kyle Tucker and he goes on and has Kyle Tucker type years, I won't think twice about what Cam Smith does in the future. But if Kyle Tucker walks and Cam Smith really kind of blossoms, that picture will be ingrained in Cubs fan lore. I promise you.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And we've got official dates. We knew it would be early, but boy, it's not that far away. The Cubs announced spring training workout days, pitchers and catchers, and full team report dates.
Yes, sir. No sweeter words in the English language than pitchers and catchers report. We got the schedule, and so when you look at spring training this year, and I just kind of took this picture here to kind of give our listeners, if you're on 670 The Score, the YouTube channel, you can see that the Cubs are the first team to have their pitchers and catchers work out. That's February 9th. And then the Dodgers 11th, and then everyone starts really more the 12th and 13th. Cubs have full squad first workout on the 14th, and the Dodgers on the 15th, when most teams are going to be having them on the 17th and 18th. So, obviously the Tokyo series is coming up. And so opening day is March 27th, but Cubs and the Dodgers start March 18th and 19th, about a week and a half earlier than every other team.
I mean, Crawly, that's like a month out. Or 2 months out, rather. Not a month. I don't want to rush it. 2 months out. 2 months out from the first games in Japan.
Right. And we're less than a month away from pitchers and catchers reporting. So again, it makes sense. You got to try to get everybody, ramped up to be ready to play in Tokyo. And Dustin, I got an email today.
I saw your tweet. This is interesting.
Yes. So for season ticket holders, there will be a lottery that you can enter. And in this lottery, you have a chance, you're not guaranteed, a chance to get tickets for the Tokyo series. Now, here's the thing as well. It is non-transferable. So if you were planning on paying for little Bobby's college fund by scalping these tickets, ain't going to happen. So if you buy the tickets, the expectation is you show up, you're not selling them on the secondary market. And so, I cannot make it, unfortunately. I wish everybody luck, but I know, between Cubs season ticket holders, Dodgers season ticket holders, and again, the point of all of this is to grow the game in Japan, right? And you talk to Japanese players, and they remember when Sammy Sosa was in Japan against the Mets and Mike Piazza. Like, that was a huge, moment. And so you got to know that a lot of the tickets are probably going to be reserved for people in Japan. So, and then you got corporate sponsors and you got all this other stuff. So I think it's going to be very similar to the Field of Dream games, where there's going to be very few tickets out there for people that are hoping to go. So we'll see what happens.
This is the Fly the W670 podcast, season 4, episode 4. It is the Cubs Con Extravaganza pregame 2025. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. Feel free to leave a 5-star review. You can email us, flythew670gmail.com. Don't forget to watch us. That's right, on the 670 The Score YouTube page. So way back in 1986, on January 31st, a small gathering of Cub fans headed to the Chicago Hyatt Regency Hotel for the first ever fan convention. And Crawly is going to talk to John McDonough, the founder of Cubs Con, to talk about the evolution of the convention over the years.
Join me now on the Fly the W podcast. I am happy to have on John McDonough, executive for 25 years with the Chicago Cubs, and who many Cub fans consider the godfather of the modern day sports convention. John, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Paul. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, this is a thrill for me. Everyone knows I love Cubs convention so much. If you could do me a favor, kind of take us back to that first Cubs convention. Obviously, the '84 Cubs were just a huge deal. Where did the idea for an off-season convention for a sports team, where was that born?
Well, the genesis of the Cubs convention was there was seemingly a pretty big gap between the end of one season, let's say October 1st, to the beginning of the next season, which would be April 1st. And for the most part, most Cub fans don't go to spring training, so there was a huge 6-month gap. So the idea was to build a bridge between the end of one season, the beginning of another, and humanize our players. We know that our fans are interested in the Cubs 12 months a year. This would give them an opportunity to engage with current players, former players, broadcasters, executives with the team. And, right off the bat, the first thing I did, I asked Harry Carey to be the honorary chairman. And I think that took it to, a different stratosphere because he talked about it on the air. I'm not sure he really knew what it was. And he had to come in, which he reminded me often, that he's coming in from Palm Springs, California, to do this. So, the first few years we had honorary chairman was Harry Carey. We had Jimmy Pearsall. We had Tom Dreesen, some of the others. And I think, Paul, by about year 3, it just exploded to the point that fans were scalping Cubs convention tickets.
Yeah, this is right here, a news clip from back in the day from that first Cubs convention, January 31st to February 2nd. And people don't realize that the very first Cub convention was held at the Hyatt Regency, correct?
That is correct. Hyatt Regency, Chicago, probably for about 10 years. And then it went to the Chicago Hilton and then on to the Sheraton. So I think we're approaching the 40-year mark.
40-year mark, and I love the fact that in this advertisement here, in this news story, it says the meeting is geared toward members of the Chicago Cub Die Hard Fan Club. I mean, that was just absolutely, the Die Hard Fan Club was one of those things I remember as a kid. And it just, it was just something that everybody wanted to be a part of. Now, when you talk about executives being there, the first GM you have at the Cubs convention is Dallas Green, and for people that don't remember Dallas, I mean, what a character. And I think nowadays, when you talk about the front office guys, they all know what to say, how to dodge and parry and really answer a question without actually answering a question. But Dallas Green, he wasn't afraid of anybody, and he wasn't afraid of answering any questions, was he?
No, he was very direct, very powerful, very candid. So when I introduced this idea to Dallas, he really liked it. And, he asked me, do I think this would be a moneymaker? I said, time will tell. I think there's going to be interest. To what degree, I don't know. But I laid it out to him. I laid it out to Jim Finks. I laid it out to Don Granesco. And they bought into the concept. I think I spent a lot of time trying to sculpt what I think would be just the right formula. It would be more than autograph sessions. There would be question and answer sessions. There would be photo sessions. We had some interactive things where the Cubs would participate and players would participate in interactive games and things. And, hundreds of booths, which we might have started year 1, maybe around 20 or 30. And then it got to the point we just couldn't handle anymore. So, I'm very proud of it. It's gone on now for, I think this is year 39. And I think the Cub fans really enjoy it, which is the most important thing.
Yeah, you talk about it. The first Cubs convention, you had about 1,600 people, and then it just absolutely grew from there. And you mentioned Harry Carey. And once Harry got to kind of become the chairman of the Cubs convention, and he really just kind of was probably bigger than life when he was walking through those hotels. What are some of your favorite Harry Carey moments from the conventions over the years?
Well, I think he really didn't know what to expect, but I think he liked the idea of being the ringmaster, of being the showman, of being the center of attention, being in the spotlight. And I felt that who better to host a party for all of our Cubs fans than Harry Carey. And he talked about it. He loved that designation as being honorary chairman. Harry was a social Olympian. He couldn't get enough of people. So, he had security with him all the time, but he couldn't go 2 or 3 steps. But it never bothered him. So he was the perfect choice for it. I think he's one of the greatest, if not the best, sales ambassadors of the game. Live it up, the meters run, and he couldn't get enough. He couldn't get enough of that. And he and I had a really good relationship.
Yeah, I mean, just absolutely, just amazing, how he could just get the crowd fired up, take me out to the ball game, throwing out the first pitch, all of those things to kind of kick Cubs convention off. One of the guys that, obviously Harry passes away in 1998. And right. At that point, that had to have been really tough afterwards after Harry passed, and kind of who would be stepping into that role that void that Harry would leave behind.
Well, I think we passed the baton, if I'm not mistaken. I think we kind of passed that baton to Pat Hughes,
right?
Who took on that mantle of honorary chairman, or the person who was the master of ceremony for the event. And who better to do that? And he did a great job, talked about the event endlessly. I think he really enjoyed it, brought his family down there to every convention. And he did a great job, and I'm sure he's still very involved in it.
Yes, sir. And one of the guys that I used to love to see was Ron Santo. I feel like, he kind of also, different than Harry, but just kind of the same kind of vein of just loving it, loving the people, loving the Cub fans. And, it was interesting when you went to Cub conventions, especially earlier ones. A lot of these guys used to have jobs in the off season, right, John? They weren't like it is today, where when you become, right away, you're a superstar player and you have an agent even in your teens, right? Where these guys were just kind of normal, everyday Joes who played baseball. That was just their occupation. But I used to love just seeing how they would interact, and they just seemed like normal, everyday people, not superstars, not legends, not Hall of Famers, just the conversations you could have with them. And seeing those teams, especially say like the 69 guys, how they used to love to rib on each other. That was just some of the funniest stuff for me.
Well, getting back to what I said, Paul, it humanized these guys, and they had never seen anything like this before. They never had so many people have access to them, but in a very controlled environment. It wasn't a mob scene. They were formally introduced. You had a master of ceremony for all their sessions. They had autograph sessions. They had, but hundreds of ways for them to communicate with their fans, and they loved it. Santo absolutely loved the event.
Another one guy that loved the event, obviously, we cannot talk about CubsCon without talking about Mr. Cub, Ernie Banks. And I remember 2014 was the last Cubs convention Ernie Banks went to, and just how proud he was. He had the Presidential Medal of Honor that he got from President Obama. And, it's funny, John. I have this video that I play every year before Cubs convention, and it was Ron Santo, Rick Sutcliffe, Lee Smith, and Ernie Banks. And of course, Ernie came late to it because he was another one of those guys that couldn't walk 3 feet without someone saying something and him starting a conversation. I mean, and you would sit there in the old days of the convention, you could just bump into Ernie Banks just sitting at a table having a conversation.
Well, I think he was very social as well. He enjoyed the interaction, and it really was. It was the first time they've ever experienced anything like this. So I think after the second or third year, they had a pretty good feel for what was expected. And the fact that, they were there under one roof for 2 or 3 days, had a lot of fun. They spent a fair amount of time in a place called Kitty O'Shea's at the Chicago Hilton Towers. I remember that very, very well. And people would bring their families, and they had a lot of fun.
Oh, Kitty O'Shea's. There's a lot of good memories from Kitty O'Shea's. I'll tell you that much. But I sit there and when you think about the partnership too later on, is that there was just so many different kind of shows and panels. I remember there was the women's panel where it was where they would ask all the guys the questions, and Tony Garofalo, the trainer at one time, even did like a training session for fans. What was kind of some of the more unique ideas for sessions that you guys had?
Well, we tried to incorporate members of the coaching staff, the training staff, the broadcasters, obviously the players. We had something that we started early on. It was called Jukebox Saturday Night, and it was a DJ, and he was there, and it was a party on Saturday night. It started about 8:00, and a lot of it was for the young people, and some of the other players, some of the players showed up as well. That was incredible. But I also want to give credit to somebody who really did a lot of work on this, Connie Kowal, Jay Blanc. Those are two names of people that were instrumental in this. But we would sit down months in advance and try to come up with some of these, creative sessions and dating games and all kinds of things.
And how hard was it to get the players to kind of come back at that time? When do you make phone calls? Once, say, like a player leaves and they're on a different team and maybe they retire from baseball, like how many conversations, phone call, how easy was it? Like you said, some of these guys, they're in nice warm places, and for whatever reason, CubsCon seems to always fall on the coldest weekend of the winter.
Yeah. We didn't pay the players. The players weren't paid. They enjoyed coming in, airfare and the hotel and everything are covered and incidentals. But it wasn't that difficult after this got off the ground. The first couple of years was a bit of a challenge because you're asking players to come from Arizona, California, Florida, Georgia, into, as you said, into the den of winter and what would be the coldest weekend. But after about the second or third year, the buzz got around, and it got to the point now, Paul, I do know this for a fact, that if players aren't invited, I get calls sometimes, even at this stage, like, hey, do you know anybody with the Cubs? I haven't been invited to the convention in a few years.
Honestly, I've heard the same thing from some certain players. Like, hey, when am I getting invited? Do you know anybody? And it's just like, oh, yeah, it's really interesting. And obviously, this year, the big story is the return of Sammy Sosa to Cubs convention. Hasn't been there since 2004. For you to think about, when Sammy was at the convention, I mean, another guy that just the fans absolutely went crazy for. How much fun was Sammy back in the day, and how excited are you for him to be able to be back at Cubs convention, to be back with the Cub fans?
I'm thrilled to see Sammy come back. He came to the convention many, many times before, and he's got that superstar label, and I'm thrilled to see the relationship come together again. I can't imagine what that introduction is going to be like on Friday night, but he played a big role in it. He's coming from, or at least when he was playing, he was coming from the Dominican Republic. I think he made virtually every one. He was somebody that I think the fans really, really enjoyed seeing. He understood his popularity, and he really enjoyed it.
Now, the one thing when people ask me about Cubs convention and they say, what's your favorite thing about Cubs convention? The first word out of my mouth is bingo. Did you have any idea that when you were going to do CubsCon bingo and Wayne Messmer was going to be calling the numbers, did you have any idea the cult following that would develop from that?
No, we didn't really have any idea how big this was going to be until about the third or fourth year. I mean, it gained some momentum and some steam. You're selling out a 1,200 room hotel year after year after year, and then selling day passes. But yeah, bingo was another highlight. And Wayne is an entertainer. Wayne is an actor, a very accomplished singer, as you know. And he was the perfect guy to host this. And he made it very dramatic, very theatrical, and everybody had a lot of fun.
I mean, to this day, it's supposed to start and he's a minute or two late and everyone's looking around, and then Bad to the Bone by George Thorogood comes out and oh my God, I've seen it a bajillion times and it never gets old. The jokes always just make me laugh. And again, to win some of those items, I'm somebody that just loves game use stuff and memorabilia, just to have that opportunity to win some of that stuff that's a little bit high end sometimes, those flags that have flown over Wrigley Field and stuff like that. And then to have the auction, the auction is something that I think maybe not all CubsCon fans or Cub fans know. You can get some really cool stuff at Cubs Convention and that the players use that were part of the games. It's like nothing else. When you think back about this, did you have any idea that this was going to be what it's become, the behemoth that it is, and that other teams would start emulating it?
As I said, about year 3, I realized we had something that, despite whether the team would win the division or whether we would lose 90 games, that the anticipation at the end of the season to go to this event, which really was the unofficial opening day of the season, I knew in about year 3, when a number of other teams and a number of other leagues came, and I spent a lot of time with them, walking them through the convention, and they looked at it and they looked at the model and they looked at the format, and they said that this could be something that, that they would do. And I think the vast majority of teams now in professional sports are doing that, which is very flattering.
Well, I got to tell you, I asked you earlier, John, I asked you the last CubsCon you were at, and you said 2007. So I went and I dug through my photographs, and this is a picture of you. Oh,
there you are.
Me and Jim Hendry, who was another guy that kind of was able, just another fun guy. Like the old school kind of front office execs just always kind of cracked me up. And Jim was another guy that could be funny, direct, self-deprecating. But just, you yourself made yourself available to the fans. And I think, as far as a fan is concerned, you sit there and you say to yourself, where can I have an opportunity to ask questions? Where can I learn more about the players? Like you said, the human aspect of the players. And I just always loved the fact that I could sit there. Oh, there's John McDonough, the president of the Cubs. Maybe I'll have a conversation with him. Oh, there's Jim Hendry. I'm going to ask him why he signed Milton Bradley. I could sit there and do these things that, usually when you talk about access, it's the beat reporters that get the opportunity to do that. Cubs Convention really is a place where you can sit there and I think there's something for everybody. They always have great stuff for kids. They have stuff for adults. They have stuff for the autograph seekers, the memorabilia seekers. They're just people that just want to laugh and get to know the players. And that's why, John, I'm so glad to have you on here to talk about Cubs Convention and really appreciate you creating something that lives on to this day.
Well, thank you. It's something we're all very proud of. And I also want to give a lot of credit to the Ricketts family and to Crane Kenny and to Jed Hoyer, because they've kind of taken it to the next level from what I understand. And this event sells out pretty quickly. It's very, very creative. Jim Obojkowicz and Joe Rios from their marketing department, I know, work very hard on this, and I keep in touch with them. But it's a phenomenon. One of the things, as we were talking earlier, like someone had interviewed me maybe in about 1995, and they said, okay, what was the absolute point you knew that this thing exploded? I said, I remember Doug DeCenzo had a autograph session at 9 a.m. in the morning on Saturday, and people slept in the hallways all night long to get his autograph. And Doug was a fine player for the Cubs. Wonderful, wonderful guy. There's a lot of interest in it. And, I think from a marketing standpoint, there's a lot of attention. People have a lot of questions. They are looking for answers. And the Ricketts family and Crane and Jed and all the baseball people, they're all stand-up guys. And Laura Ricketts is a stand-up woman, and she answers questions as well, and she's available. So the access is incredible. And that was the point of the entire event. Bringing the players together, the former players, the broadcasters, the front office, and the fans, and having the ability to interact and have a lot of fun.
Yeah, and this year, I don't know if you got a chance to see the program at all. It's actually on an app now, but what ends up happening is they're actually going to be having a session with the women of the front office that work for the baseball, and the Spanish announcer, Miguel Esparza, is going to have a session with some of the Latino players. So I think it's just branching out, being, just getting bigger, becoming more inclusive, and there's just so many cool things about it. But again, it starts at the Hyatt. John McDonough, Harry Carey, your entire staff, just absolutely great. And thank you so much for your time today, John.
You're welcome, Paul. Good to visit with you. Have fun this weekend.
You know I will. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
That's a wrap. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. Follow on all the socials, Facebook, Instagram. We're on Twitter. Email us, flythew670gmail.com, and watch us by subscribing to the 670 The Score YouTube channel. All right, Crawly, try and behave. Try to get maybe 5 hours of sleep between Thursday and Sunday morning. And remind everybody one more time what your social is, because I'm sure you're going to have a lot of original content for people to pick up on.
Yeah, if you follow me on Twitter or Facebook is Crawly's Clubhouse. Everything else is at Crawly's Cubs on X, Blue Sky, Instagram, you name it, yeah, TikTok, everything. But we are going to have some man on the street, Crawly on the street. I will be interviewing the fans, Dustin. We are going to hear from the fans at CubsCon. And so this is going to be exciting. Come say hello, give me your thoughts, and we'll make sure that you get all the Cubs news that comes out from CubsCon. Go Cubs! Hey guys, it's Crawly. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date with our latest episodes. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Go Cubs!